Hello, I'm going to record now Daf Kuf Hey. We're up to Kuf Daled Amid Beis at the bottom, the last line. Tana, we learned in a brayse, Nischav and Lichtav Isachas, if somebody wanted to write one letter, V'ola b'yodei shtayim, and inadvertently he wrote two, but he's chayiv. For instance, if you wanted to write a ches, and a ches is really a combination of two zayins stuck together, but there's no stuck together, so he has two zayins. The Gemara asks about Tanan in the Mishnah, it said that he's potter. And the Gemara answers, Lekasha hadabai is yuni. The case where he's potter is where Lumushal, the zayins, need the three crowns on top, and hadalai is yuni. And the case where he's chayiv is where there are no crowns needed. In order to understand this, we have to take our time a little bit. The first issue is if a man really wanted to write a ches and instead he wrote two zayins, that's misasik. Like a man wanted to extinguish candle A, by mistake he extinguished candle B, he's potter. So therefore, you must say that it's speaking here where a man wants to write a number of letters, whatever number of letters, whatever letters, but his intent right now was to write the ches of the letters that he wanted to write. By mistake he wrote two zayins, but it doesn't really matter to him. Two zayins is just as good practice for his penmanship as a ches. So Im Kain, the Gemara could have given a simple answer why in the Mishnah it says potter and the Brayse it says chayiv. In the Mishnah it says potter, we'll be speaking because he really wanted to write a ches, and instead he wrote two zayins. So therefore it's... The Mishnah could be speaking where Imamish wanted to write a ches, and instead he actually wrote two zayins, so that's misasik, and he's potter. The Bryce is talking where he wants to write any number of letters, and it doesn't matter to him what letters and how much he writes. So therefore, if instead of a ches he wrote two zayins, he's also chayiv. So why didn't the Gemara give that teretz? Because the Gemara wanted to give you a teretz. The Rishonim say that the Gemara wanted to give you a teretz even if you wanted to write any number of letters. Still, we could answer why in the Mishnah you're potter and in the Bryce you're chayiv. Because in the Mishnah you're potter because the letters needed ziyun. And the Bryce Yechayiv because the letters don't need ziyun. Here there's machlokes in Rashi and other Rishonim. According to Rashi, if the letters on a Sefer Torah that need ziyun, which are the letters Shin, Ayin, Tes, Nun, Zayin, Gimel, Tzadi, are written without ziyun, it's not kosher. So therefore, in the Mishnah is speaking where he did it without ziyun. If he did it without ziyun, you're not chayiv for writing those two letters which need ziyun in the Torah. On the other hand, the Bryce is talking about where he already did the ziyun. Either he did the ziyun, or it's two letters that don't need ziyun, or he wrote some other sefer, not kisvei kodesh, that doesn't need ziyun. Other Rishonim disagree and say that even in the Sefer Torah, if you don't do ziyun, it's still kosher. But the Mishnah is speaking where it was his intention to be mezayin them. If it's his intention to be mezayin them, and in the end he wasn't mezayin, so therefore he's potter. But if it was not his intention to be mezayin them, you're chayiv, because it's considered kosher afilo without ziyun. So let me just review what I did here, because there was a slight interruption. Number one, if you wanted to write a ches and instead he wrote two zayins, he's potter, because that's misasik. So therefore, the brayse that says that he's chayiv is speaking where he was writing letters stam. He doesn't care what letters he's writing, but he thought he was going to write a ches, and instead he wrote two zayins. But his intention was to write stam letters. So that's why he's chayiv. So then l'chayr, the Gemara could have answered that the Mishnah is speaking where he intended to write a ches, and therefore by writing two zayins he's potter. And the Bryce is he's writing whatever. So if he's writing whatever, and he thought he was going to write a ches, and instead he wrote two zayins, whatever, he's chayiv. The reason the Gemara didn't give that teretz is because the Gemara wanted to show you that even somebody who's writing letters, whatever, sometimes he can be chayiv, like the Bryce says, and sometimes he can be potter, like the Mishnah says. Why can he be potter chayiv? The Mishnah is speaking where he didn't put the ziyun on, so he's potter. And the Bryce is speaking where either he put the ziyun on or you don't need ziyun. So according to Rashi, we're talking about kisvei kodesh. Without ziyun, it's puzzle. Those letters that need ziyun are puzzle. So in the Mishnah, you're potter because you didn't put ziyun on them. But in the Bryce, you're chayiv because either he did put ziyun on them or they're letters that don't need ziyun. Now the Rishonim hold that a Sefer Torah, kisvei kodesh, are kosher even without ziyun. But the Mishnah is speaking where he wanted to do ziyun. So if you wanted to do it with ziyun and you didn't finish the ziyun, so you didn't finish it, and therefore you're not chayiv. Kosav Isachas Turikoin Rabbi Shubha B'Serim B'Chai V'Chamin Paitrim. If you wrote a letter which represents a whole word, So Rabbi Shimon Beseira says you're chayiv, the Chachamim say you're potter. Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Rabbi Yossi ben Zimra Menayin Lil Shain Noi Turika Min HaTorah. Where do you find in the Torah that there are a word can be broken into letters, and every letter stands for another word? Because the Kodesh Baruch Hu told Avraham Avinu, Ki Av Hamayin Goyim Nesaticha. So Av is Aleph Beis. Av Nesaticha L'umais, you're a father to the nations, because it says Av, and Beis, you're a Bachur Nesaticha L'umais, I made you chosen amongst the nations, as it says, Atahu Hashem Elokim Asher Becharto B'Avram. Hamayin stands for a hay is like a ches. Chaviv Nesaticha B'umais, I made you beloved, because Avram was called Avram Ohavi. Melech, the mem stands for Melech Nesaticha B'umais, because he was told Nasi Elokim Ata B'Seichenu, you're a Nasi, you're like a king amongst us. Vasik, which means the Vav stands for Vasik, humble Nesaticha B'umais, because he said, I am Afer Ve'aver. And the Nun from Hamayin stands for Neman Nesaticha L'umais, you are faithful, as it says, Motzosas Levavai Neman Levanecha. Rabbi Yochanan Dideyom, Rabbi Yochanan, his own pshat says, we find the word Anoichi of the Aseres HaDibros is Noitarikin, is short for Anon Nafshi Ksivat Yehavis. I myself wrote this and gave you the Torah. Others have typed, I gave you myself in this Torah. Ikad Yamri, some say Anoichi Lemafreya Ksiva. The Noichi is backwards. Yehiva Ktiva, it was given to you in writing. Nemonim Amoreha, the words are faithful. The Reb Nosson Amri, in Reb Nosson's yeshiva, they said that the Malach told Bilam, Ki Yorat Haderech Lenegdi, regarding the donkey. Yorat stands for Yora, it became frightened, Rosa from what it saw, and therefore Natsa, it turned off the road. So that's Yud Reish Nun, is Yud Reish Tes, is Yorat, the Tes from Natsa. The Rabbi Shmuel Tan, Rabbi Shmuel's yeshiva, they said that the word Carmel is Carmole, because when Tvua is fresh, then the kernel inside is moist. So the kernel inside is full and fills the cover of the kernel. So Carmole is like a pillow which is full. That's called Carmel, fresh Tvua. Rav Acha Bar Yaakov says, V'hu kilani klola nimretzes. David said about Shimi ben Geri, he cursed me a klola nimretzes. What's nimretzes? He claimed that David was Nayefu, he was over Aishas Ish with Bathsheba. Mayavihu, the mem stands for Mayavi, comes from Rusa Mayavia. Reitzeachu, because he killed Uriah. Tzairerhu, because he comes from Mayav, and it says Ki Tzairim Heim Lochem, so the Mayav are called Tzairim, and Toyevahu, since the Benais Mayav seduced the Yidden, both Taved and Tiznus, which is Tayeva, and he's a descendant of the Mayavim. So that's what he called David HaMelech. Rav Nachman Yitzchak Omer, he says, when the brothers told Yosef, Man edaber, man nitztadak, the word nitztadak means Nechayim anachnu, we're right, tzadikim anachnu, we're righteous, Tayrim anachnu, we're pure, Dakim anachnu, we're innocent, we're clean, and Kedoshim anachnu, we're Kaddish. So the Mishnah, HaKoisev, Shtei Oisi is B'Shtei Halamis. If you write a letter, and then you realize you shouldn't have done that, and then you forget again, you write another letter, or you wrote Achas Shachas V'Achas Bein Arbaim, one in the morning, one in the afternoon, Rav Gamliel Mechayev, because Rav Gamliel says, Ein Yediyah L'Chotzi Shir, the Yediyah that you had between one letter and the other is not considered a break in your Chiyuv, because your Yediyah was not Mechayev anything. The Chacham Paitrim, the Chacham hold, B'Maikam Iflagi, Rav Gamliel Savar, Ein Yediyah L'Chotzi Shir, the Yediyah of writing one letter is meaningless, therefore the two letters combine. And the Rabbanan Savar, Yesh Yediyah L'Chotzi Shir, as long as there's knowledge after you did something wrong, even though you're not Chayiv a korban for it, that knowledge already cancels the first Maisa, and then the second Maisa is a separate one. So we have to speak out here. It becomes clear that if somebody writes a letter and then remembers you're not supposed to write, writes another letter, so Rav Gamliel is Mitzaref the two letters, because he says Ein Yediyah L'Chotzi Shir, and the Chachamim are Mechalik the two letters Yesh Yediyah L'Chotzi Shir. What's with Achas Shachas V'Achas Bein Arbaim, writing one letter at 9 o'clock in the morning, one letter at 5 o'clock in the afternoon? So Rashi says mysterious words. Rashi says, Kivan da Havale Shoz Ben Asayim Kidei Leida, since he has enough time to have realized it, Havale Kishtei Halamis. It's considered as if it was two lapses of memory because they were so far apart. And Tais says he doesn't understand Rashi. Since when is a great amount of time considered a Yediyah? And if it is, then what amount of time is it that's considered a Yediyah? So Tais says a different shot. Loilam, we're talking about there was a Yediyah between one ois and the other. And Gamliel says that Yediyah doesn't the Yediyah doesn't count. The Chum say Yediyah counts. So the Chum say once you have a Yediyah between the two Isis, you're potter. Gamliel says the Yediyah doesn't count, and the two Isis combine. And the Chiddush is that even if the two Yediyahs, even if the two Isis had a Yediyah between it, and in addition to the Yediyah, it had 9 hours between them, you still, Rav Gamliel holds Ein Yediyah. Even though there was a Yediyah and there was a big space of time, nevertheless, he holds that the two Isis, one written at 9, one written at 5, still are mitzdarif. So the reason it says Achas Shachas v'Achas Bein Arbaim means HaKaisef Shtei Isis b'Shtei Alamis Afilu Achas Shachas v'Achas Bein Arbaim. Rav Gamliel is still mechayev and combines the two. But that's Taisus Pshat. Rashi has a chiddush that if there's a big lapse of time, the Chachamim would pater you, even though there was no Yediyah, because the lapse of time is equivalent to a Yediyah. The Mishnah, a person who weaves 3 threads across the loom, or there's already fabric on the loom, and he adds 1 thread to the existing fabric, that's enough to make you chayiv. The Chachamim are mebein batchila bein b'soif shiur shnei chutim. Doesn't matter whether you're starting out the fabric or you're continuing with the fabric, it's always 2 threads. Now again, there's very vague this botei business. I've explained it in the past, I'm not doing it again. The Lashon ha'oiseh shnei botei sounds like you're making the circles on the vertical lines through which you're going to put the threads of Shasi, making the circles. But then it says, it's not oiseh shtei botei it's banirin, or bakerus, which we'll see in the Gemara means to say when you put the thread through it. So we'll see more in the Gemara, but it's not clear exactly what these botei are. Now it's not only when you're weaving fabric, it's also banafa or bakvara. A nafa is a keli you sift flour, a kvara is a keli you sift tvua from chaff. But in any case, it has a cross weave. So either you're weaving fabric or you're weaving something in order to make a utensil, or basal, you're weaving a basket, which also has a cross weave, you're chayiv. Hatoy for shtei tfiris, bakareim and aslit for shtei tfiris. If you sew 2 stitches or you tear fabric in order to be able to re-sew it and sew 2 stitches, you're chayiv for kareim. Kiyosir Rabbi Yitzchak Tani, where Rabbi Yitzchak came from Eretz Yisrael to Bavel, he taught shnei. He said in the Tanakam of the Mishnah, or Rabbi Lezer, that it's 2. For Nantanan Shloisha, but our Mishnah says, according to Rabbi Lezer, when you're starting out fabric, it's 3 threads. Like Hasha, there's no contradiction. Habalimi, habaktini. It depends whether it's thick threads or very fine threads. And Amri lo gisa, Amri lo gisa. Some differentiate one way, some differentiate exactly the opposite. Let me explain. Amri lo gisa, some differentiate one way. Alimi, if they're thick threads, talasa leisasri. Once you have 3, it's going to hold. But tray, 2 thick threads, sasri will come apart. So therefore, but ktini, if it's thin threads, even tray nami loy sasri, even 2 will hold. So Rabbi Lezer held if it's thin threads, it's 2, but if it's thick threads, you have to have 3. Amrilon, some say la gisa, exactly the opposite. Ktini, tlosa yedi, tray lo yedi. If it's thin threads, only after 3 threads can you see some fabric starting to come together. So then you're chayiv. But 2 you wouldn't be chayiv on. Alimi, if it's thick threads, even tray nami yedi. Even after 2, the fabric starts to be visible. Tanya we learned in a brayso. Ha'orik shloisha chutim batchila ve'echad ala orik chayiv. If somebody weaves 3 threads to start the weaving, or 1 thread when the weaving already was in existence, the fabric was in existence, you're chayiv, which is Rabbi Eliezer. Chachamim, the Chachamim say bein batchila bein b'soif shiuran shnei chutin. Whether you're starting to weave fabric or you're adding on to existing fabric, it's always 2 threads. Uba safa, it used to be that on the perimeter around a garment, they used to put in 2 separate special threads. Sometimes they would put in stronger threads. Like if the beged was made of cotton, they would put the threads around the perimeter of linen. And that edge, it's shnei chutin b'roichav shloisha botei. It's if you have gone with 2 threads over and under 3 cross threads. So if you went with one time you went across 3 and another time you went across 3. Halamazah daima, where do you find that such a little piece should be considered weaving? La'irek tziltzul cotton, shnei chutim b'roichav shloisha botei. If somebody has a very, very thin belt, and a very thin belt, you might find that somebody will weave 2 threads across 3, there's 3 threads going in lengthwise, and you'll do 2 threads going across it. The Gemara says, "Ha'orik shloisha chutim batchila v'echad al orik chayiv is stomach Rabbi Eliezer." When the Brisa said three threads to start fabric and one added to fabric, well, that's Rabbi Eliezer. Tanya idach, another Brisa, "Orik shnei chutin al agas." If you sew two threads on some existing fabric, valo imra, or at an edge, you're chayiv. That's the chachamim shita, that it's always going to be two. Rabbi Lezer Aimer afila echad, if it's existing fabric, you're chayiv even if you had one thread. Ubasafa, but if it's in the end, he agrees that it's shnei chutin, b'reichav shloisha batinir chayiv, and the edge, at the end, if you have two threads that go, let's say, over one, under another, and over the third, that's two threads crossing three threads, you're chayiv. What is it similar to? When you have a small belt, then you may be weaving two threads across three cross threads. When we learned in the Tanakama, that you're only chayiv when you add two threads to existing fabric, or two threads at the end, that's stomach Rabbanan, because the Rabbanan hold that even if you have existing fabric, you're only chayiv when you have two threads going across. Where Rabbi Lezer holds, if you have existing fabric, even one is mechayiv you. Hoyse shtei botenirin, my banirin. What is shnei botenirin banirin? Amar Abai says tarti bebatenira v'chada banira. Very, very, very hard to understand what this means. There are so many pshatim, and all of them are unclear. I'm only going to use one pshat. Normally, the way I explain the loom is you have, let's say, two squares, and they have vertical, let's say, wires, and one square goes up lifting, let's say, all the odd numbered threads, and then the other one goes up lifting all the even numbered threads. They go back and forth. But that's if you have a real loom. At home, sometimes they didn't really have a real fancy loom. So they had threads going across, and then from the threads going across, they took a piece of string and tied it to the string going across, and the other end of the string, they tied to a vertical string that was standing up. So they tied the two together, and that way it went up and down. So therefore, there's a bas near and a near. One is tying a little tiny string to the strings going across, and the other is tying the other end of that string to the string that's vertical. And that way, since the two are tied together, whenever you're going to lift the vertical strings, you'll be lifting all the, let's say, odd or even number strings that are on the loom. And bakiras, what's bakiras? My bakiras, amarav mitzuvisa. It's a special kind of a loom, and that's something else. I don't know exactly what it is. Okay, I'm going to record this first.